Hi everyone. Before we get into our practice today, let's take a few moments to set our intentions and to bring our mind and body into our yoga experience. Let's take our hands together, fingertips and thumbs, and rest our thumbs against our sternum. Take a moment to spread out through your toes, to lengthen through the crown of the head, and just allow the shoulders to gracefully drape over the top of your upper back. Let's take a moment to close our eyes gently, to soften our jawlines, to soften our foreheads, and just begin to turn our attention inward to our own bodies and our own minds. And as we find this place of connection, let's remind ourselves to let go of any expectation, any self-judgment, and any competition, and set ourselves on a journey of exploration to nurture our self-confidence and to cultivate an environment that makes us feel a little bit more at peace and maybe a little bit more self-confident. So as we close our eyes, let's begin to inhale through our nose, exhaling all the air out, taking the time to breathe at our own perfect pace, allowing our breath to represent the colours, the texture, and the flavour of our practice ahead. Let's take 2 more deep breaths together. And our last one. Gently opening our eyes and preparing ourselves for practice. So let's begin with our poses on the floor. So as we head into the end of our practice, focusing on poses that we hold longer to develop more flexibility, and now because we're closer to the floor, starting to prepare us to relax and head to the end of our practice. So our first pose on the floor today is butterfly. So let's take up our left heel and our right heel, placing our feet together, placing our big toes, the balls of our feet and heels all in a line, just finding ourselves comfortable on our sitting bones, the 2 hard parts underneath us, and then taking our fingers, interlacing them across the top of our toes, pressing our heels together, lifting up through our sternum, and just allowing our knees to comfortably relax towards the floor. Taking care not to push or create any extra tension through our hips. So inhaling to lift and exhaling, relaxing into butterfly. Finding a nice stretch through our inner thighs, as well as finding great postural awareness through our back. Now, if we're taking care, we find that we're a little inflexible in butterfly, we might choose to perhaps just take our hands on the outside edges of our knees and just bring our knees closer together. Alternatively, if we want a little more, we might find ourselves hinging forward from the hips, leading with our heart center, and easing our hands and forearms towards the floor. Taking care that our elbows don't push down on our inner thighs, keeping our hips nice and still. So reaching forward with our hearts and exhaling, carefully surrendering into butterfly. Taking 2 nice deep breaths. Exhaling, letting go of any tension, any expectation. Taking 1 more. And softening through our inner thighs. As we take our hands back towards our toes, slowly inhaling, lifting back into neutral spine. If we found butterfly was quite easy, we might want to challenge ourselves by taking ourselves into straddle position. So we've got a couple of options. Taking our hands underneath our knees, let's take our feet out nice and wide. Now, if we find that our knees tend to sit and roll inward, we might want to bring our legs a little closer together. Likewise, if our knees roll out, bringing our legs a little further apart. So pressing our heels down, lifting our toes to the ceiling, and keeping our knees tracking directly out with our feet. Option number 1, our hands can come behind if we'd prefer something more upright today, or if we'd like to challenge our inner thigh flexibility, placing our hands ahead, inhaling to lift, and exhaling, hinging slowly and carefully forward, placing our forearms on the floor. Continuing to reach out through our heels, lifting through our toes, and firming the muscles at the tops of our legs to provide a nice stretch on the underside. Now we might find ourselves really comfortable here, and if that's the case, we might take it a little bit further again. So inhaling, walking our hands further forward and taking our chest and maybe our chin towards the floor, perhaps taking our fists, supporting our heads, or maybe today, taking our hands nice and wide. Inhaling to lift and exhaling, softening through our upper body. Taking 2 nice deep breaths, surrendering to our inner thighs, calming our mind and stilling our bodies. To exit straddle pose safely, take our hands back in, ease ourselves up towards neutral spine, and take our hands underneath our knees, bending our knees and bringing our legs together. Taking our hands around, just taking a small little round of our spine, just to stretch through the outside of our glutes and our low back. And moving into our next pose, seated spinal twist. So for seated spinal twist, we're going to turn our bodies around and face towards the top of our mat, extending both legs out, finding our sitting bones once again underneath us, lengthening up through the crown of our head, pressing our heels away. Taking our hands by the side of our body and beginning with our right leg. So bending our right leg, placing our right heel to the floor, taking our right hand behind our body and extending our left hand out ahead to the horizon. Inhaling to lift, exhaling, turning our belly button towards our inner thigh in this direction, and then allowing our ribs, our chest, and shoulders as our elbow comes around the outside of our knee, continuing to lift, exhaling, slowly turning our eye gaze towards the back of the room. So inhaling, lengthening, exhaling, surrendering, and coming a little deeper. So spinal twist provides us with an opportunity to find a different perspective, not only in our practice, but also in our lives, and creating and nurturing vitality and aiding in digestion. Let's take one more inhale here. Exhaling safely, taking care of our spines as we rotate back towards the front, extending our leg and preparing for the other side.